In 1 year, nearly 13,000 lives were lost in speeding-related crashes. According to police reports, 37% of 16-year-old drivers in fatal crashes were speeding. If you want to end up in the hospital, speeding is the fastest way to get there.
I drive as fast as the road will let me.
My dad says he feels comfortable when I drive, but my mom won't get in the car with me.
I drive very different when my mom's in the car. I'm a lot more nervous, which probably isn't a good thing, but I try not to drive with her in the car because she's hopping all over the front and back seat and freaking me out.
She gets in the car, she's like, oh my God, stop. She puts her hand on the dashboard and everything.
When I have some real jerk pull up next to me, he thinks he's in a real nice car, and he tries to fly off the line or whatever, and I catch up to him in like 5 seconds and just blow by him. Makes me feel good, that's all.
He'll sit at a light and he'll be, and start tapping the wheel or something, and he wants to go.
There are times when I'm riding with her when I'll have to remind her of the speed limit.
I thought I could go faster, and all of a sudden the car would start shaking. And
I know a lot of drivers that speed, which are terrible drivers, but I consider myself a pretty good driver.
I taught David how to drive the car, and I think that David is a pretty good driver, although at times I think David drives a little too fast.
The speedometer on my car goes up to 85, and I guess I've had it 2-3 inches past 85. The biggest thing I worry about when I'm driving fast is, I guess, getting a speeding ticket, because that would be the worst. My mother might take my car away from me.
I don't think I'm strict enough with David, but I'm sure that David thinks that I'm too strict with him.
she doesn't trust me as a driver. If I'm going 35 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, she's like, grabbing the sides of the car.
No, I can't do it only with my buddies in the car or alone. My girlfriend, she'll smack me, and, my dad, he'll choke me to death,
I give some advice of being more patient. Yeah, he's impatient sometimes driving.
I think I'm a little more comfortable at ease a driver than Barrett.
My mom has more experience on the road, but I have the skill.
Sometimes I probably cut corners, so to speak, when they're not there.
It might be a macho thing, I don't know.
I had no idea that my dad was a wild driver.
I told him to slow down a little bit.
We all, teenagers, I guess, think we're invincible and we're never going to die, so.
More teenagers are killed in auto crashes at night than during the day. In cities that have imposed curfews on teenagers, total crashes have been reduced by 23%. Agree on a reasonable time to be home before your time runs out.
I think I can drive as well when it's dark as when it's light.
The more you stay out, the more people crazier that are going to be on the road.
I think there is a feeling of more sense of danger at night.
I think people get a little bit crazier at night.
The minute they are a minute later than they're supposed to be, accident is the first thing you think about.
If we fight over curfews, it's usually over like a half an hour. It's nothing big.
I don't recall any fights over curfews.
I usually fight with Mom about curfews.
I have a pretty good relationship with mine.
He's been known to have trouble with his parents, sometimes also.
Well, I don't have a curfew. I tell them when I'm going to be home, and they say that's fine, because I don't ever say, I'll be home at 5 or 6 or something.
We don't have a specific curfew, but she does say I'll be home at 11 o'clock or be home at 1 o'clock, and, normally she's home within 15 minutes of that time, which is, pretty responsible.
I'm too strict on him, yes. And you can see sometimes he blows up or he gets frustrated.
In today's society, having your father drive you to a party is a no-no. I mean, it's no can do.
Well, I just said that my curfew depends on where I go. But my dad said something different, so I'm confused.
Most of the time I take him to the parties.
And then he picks me up there. I mean, but except for one time where he had the nerve to come with a flashlight and shine it in my face saying, Mark, over here, over here.
I don't think most parents know what their kids do, because if they did, they probably wouldn't let a lot of them out.
In attempting to be good parents, you tend to be disciplinarians at sometimes.
Whenever he goes out to a party, I like to know what time the party's over.
For all the academic pressure that he puts on me, and and how well I am able to handle that responsibility, driving and going out and going to parties, he does not put too much trust in me.
He says, I'm going to a party. I say, where's the party? He won't tell me. If he doesn't tell me, I don't let him go.
I think most parents like to feel that they know what is going on in the evening when their kids are out with the car or with friends in the friend's car.
Yeah, my mother stays up. She looks in the window, until everybody's home sleeping.
I guess we just take the screams, I mean, if I'm out and I know I'm going to be late, I try to call.
I think a lot of kids rebel a lot more if they don't communicate with their parents, or if their parents don't let them do a lot more things.
Yeah, you do what your parents don't want you to.
Exactly.
It's kind of nature.
I mean,
what time
as much can happen between 10 o'clock and 12 as between 12 and 2 or whatever. That's the reality. But it's the parent who's lying there wondering, and I just don't really sleep till I hear the door close and I know they're in.
My mother, she's the type of mother, she doesn't go to sleep unless everybody's in the house.
I think we all like to feel we do know what's going on. Sometimes there's a little fear that perhaps you really don't know what's going on. But we do talk about it, and when Barrett leaves the house, we supposedly know where he will be.
It's nothing to be afraid of, Ma.
$6,800 spinal cord injuries, 179,000 cases of brain injury, 630,000 facial injuries in 1 year. Protect yourself. Wear your safety belt.
If I sit in the car and I don't have my seatbelt on, I get nervous, even if I'm just going down the street.
I only wear my safety belt when I'm driving, usually, or if I'm in the front seat.
The seatbelt, I think it just annoys me, just the feel of it. So I never really wear it.
David always wears a safety belt.
I think it's more important for the passenger to wear the safety belt, because right in front of me, I have the steering wheel, and if I hit something, I'm going to see it first, and I'm just going to brace myself.
He doesn't even get in the car on the passenger side without putting a seatbelt on.
With my dad in the car, if I didn't have my seatbelt on, he'd kill me, so.
I think because he was in one accident, he had a seatbelt on, and his buddy went into the window, and he didn't, so that kind of reinforced it.
And my passenger had a seatbelt on, and she didn't want to put it on, and I wouldn't start the car until she did. And in fact, she got bruises from the seatbelt, so if she hadn't been wearing the seatbelt, she really could have been hurt.
I feel uncomfortable forcing people to put the seatbelts on if they don't want to.
Recently, I've been driving with a few of my friends, and I make it a point to wear a seatbelt.
A lot of my friends don't wear seatbelts, so why should I?
We make everybody wear their safety belts.
Front and they don't have to be reminded. They just automatically put them on.
He doesn't like wearing seatbelts. Because he feels that if he ever ran off of a bridge or had to get out, then it might be stuck, and he has a fear of that.
I was stopped here in Stanford, and I didn't have my belt on. The cop said, "Put your belt on here."
My brother and I had to get my parents in the habit of wearing their safety belts.
I wear safety belts now.
And we're not perfect either. That's one thing I always tell my daughter is I'm still learning too.
Yeah, sometimes you learn from your kids, and this is one of those things we learn from my kids.
Well, we have to teach them too, I guess.
Alcohol is present in more than 40% of all fatal car crashes. Alcohol involvement in auto crashes peaks on weekend nights. Have you ever gotten in a car with someone who had been drinking? Would you do it again?
Chris always came home when he was supposed to. In fact, I figured he'd be home about 10:30, between 10:30 and 11:15, and he was killed at 10:25 by a 16-year-old drunk driver.
I was involved in an alcohol-related crash. This is the car driven by a drunk driver that hit me. This was the car I was driving.
Chris was my youngest son, and never gave me any trouble.
I was injured so severely that when my parents finally got to the hospital, the doctors told them to make plans because I wasn't expected to make it through the night.
I was driving down the Long Island Expressway after drinking a lot of beer.
The drunk driver crossed the center line. He was trying to pass 4 cars on a corner at night.
I'd been drinking all afternoon and into the evening.
My husband and I were waiting, and it's getting after 11, and I never did give Christopher curfew because he was always home at the time he was I felt was reasonable.
I still have a metal plate in this arm. There was a metal plate in my leg.
I was doing well over 100 miles an hour driving down the expressway.
All the bones in my face were broken. My nose was shattered and torn away from my face.
And it was getting late. So my husband said, well, I'll go out and look for him. And he left. And I was at home with my daughter.
My eyelid was torn off of my face. They had to sew that back on.
The girl in the front seat and ended up pulling the emergency brake.
Must have been about 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. 2 policemen drive up. And as soon as I went out the door, just said, he's dead. And the policeman said yes.
My jaw was shattered. My teeth were jammed backwards into my face. They had to give me a tracheotomy because I couldn't breathe on my own.
And the car started spinning, doing 360s.
And I said, drunk? And he said, no. And I knew Chris because Chris didn't. And I said, the other boy. And he said, yes.
Because of the fact that my face was literally torn off of my skull, I've permanently lost a sense of smell and taste.
He was 16 years old. He had a vodka bottle next to him.
And I was passing cars going in reverse on the expressway.
The physical therapy was 19 months, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day.
I ended up crashing into the divider in the middle.
My husband came back later and had to go down to the morgue to identify Christopher.
And then I pulled off the divider onto the right-hand shoulder, and the cops pulled up.
I think back now when I was sitting at home with my husband and we were waiting for Christopher to come home. The ambulance took him past our street.
The cops pulled me over and they said, have you been drinking? And I had a bag of bagel chips, onion-flavored bagel chips in my car, so I ate a mouthful of them. And he's like, oh, breathe in my face, you know? So I gladly gave him a mouthful of onion bagel chips, you know?
Some of the EMTs were schoolmates of Christopher and just couldn't handle it.
So I'm still disabled for the rest of my life.
So I was like, all right, got away with it again, you know?
Don't be somebody you're not. Be yourself. You don't have to impress anybody.
If your friends are pressuring, then get some new friends. Because
exactly. Those aren't your real friends.
Exactly.
You listen non-judgmentally.
Yes.
The minute you start being disapproving, they'll climb up and they won't talk to you anymore. So you're very selective as to what and how you react to what they tell you.
You also need availability. You always need to be, if they need to talk, you always need to be there. And if it needs to be 3 in the morning, it's 3 in the morning.
That's right. Our parents are going to try to bring us up the same way they were, their parents brought them up. So,
and my parents always told, don't look at your friends. Just, listen to us. I mean, we know which is good for you. And, I mean, we don't always listen.
Yeah.
We're teenagers.
Try and talk. Because there are times when we don't talk, and we kind of make it a point of talking. We may go off in our own rooms or whatever, but we work it back out by the end of the night. It means a lot to me anyway. I hope it means a lot to him.
Once they have a license and once they have access to a car, you really lose control over what they do. You can tell them no, and they can say, okay, I won't.
I think it's a matter of responsibility. I think you have to really make your kids aware of that it's a big responsibility to get into a car. Period.
If everybody drove like me, the world would be great.
Having children is a license to worry. Renewable every day.